Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is SK Shlomo, and you are watching episode 3 of We Are Listening, which is my monthly live stream. And the goal of this is to get real and to talk about real life issues around mental health and creativity with creative people around the world. And today I'm really excited that I'm going to be joined in a second by Kodaline, woohoo, which we're all really excited about. Before we chat to them, I just thought I'd explain to you what this is all about and why this is happening. So, we're going to be talking in depth about our journeys, our stories, and our struggles. And the reason why I felt it was super important to do this is because, I'm SK Shlomo. I got first known as a beatboxer, live looper, collaborator. And it wasn't until I stopped all of that to try and make my own solo record for the first time that I realised I had a whole bunch of stuff in my head that I had been trying to ignore for a very long time. And when I stopped the cycle of constant performance and constant validation from the outside world, it felt like my head had just imploded and I kind of got very mentally ill. And then the process of writing the album became like a process of trying to learn and grow and heal. And when I started talking about this album to the rest of the world, I launched a pledge campaign and I started talking about mental health for the first time in public. The emotional reaction was just incredible. I'm still getting it now every day, getting messages and messages and messages from people who feel a real desire to talk about this stuff. Like, it's like we're all kind of carrying it around close to our chests and we're afraid to share it in case it becomes too real. And so that's why I decided to just get on with it and just start talking to other people about it and just connecting and hopefully start to make this world feel a little bit less gigantic and overwhelming. So the first episode I did with Jason Mraz and 95,000 people were watching it. And then we did a second episode with Bill Bailey. That went really well. And here we are with episode 3, which I'm super excited to say. I have on the line the boys from Kodaline. Please say hi to Jay and Mark. Yay!
How you doing? How's it going?
Hi guys, how are you?
Very good. No, we're just in rehearsals. We've been getting ready for the next album tour, so we're getting ready to go back on the road ourselves. We've been off for a while. We had a bit of time at home and some life to do, but we're getting back into the mode of doing it all the time again.
That's so cool, man. Honestly, the reaction when we kind of posted up that we were going to be doing this talk and asking for comments has been absolutely amazing. You guys have got some dedicated fans, right?
Big time, yeah. We're very lucky. We're very lucky. Yeah.
That's amazing. And so, you guys know, right? You guys know what it's like to be kind of working really, really hard, working full time, kind of creating music, creating output, traveling a lot, getting exhausted a lot, I'm guessing. So I'm guessing it's something that would be, it would resonate with you, that it's kind of important to talk about these things.
No, completely. We did the first kind of 2 album campaigns back to back, and we didn't really take a break. And we thought we were invincible, as everyone does at that young age. And you just kind of, it's only when you stop that you, as you said yourself, when you went back to make the album, it's like you stop and you realise how much you've kind of put yourself through and how much you've kind of neglected. And it's only when you get that time to kind of look back and reflect a bit that you're like, oh, there's stuff going on here that I need to deal with. So we're very lucky that there's 4 of us. I think being a solo artist is probably a lot harder because it's just you out there taking all the flack, whereas we can kind of see when someone's down and we get behind each other. And yeah, it's so important to talk about these days because everybody goes through some kind of mental health issues. And just being aware of it is a huge part of trying to fix it.
Absolutely right. I completely agree with you. And that's kind of something that's been a real common thread on these streams and in general just talking to people about it is like the more we kind of talk about it, the more we destigmatize it. And it's a bit like, I don't know, if one of you guys broke your leg, do you know what I mean? You just go to the doctor and say, I've broken my leg, and your physical health isn't something to be ashamed of. It's normal. So everyone's like, oh, you broke your leg, that's sad. But for some reason, if you break your head, you break your brain, it's not. Why is it not okay to say I am having a really, really bad time and I'm unhappy? Like, it doesn't seem to be okay to say I'm unhappy.
I think a lot of that is down to, like, if people go through like anxiety, there's an anxiety in even talking to people when you're in depths of it. I remember we toured for like I said 3.5 years, and then when we took a break, I just kind of started getting panic attacks when I was at home. All of a sudden, it's kind of started to freak me out. But when you're in that state, and when you start, the last thing you want to do is tell someone how you actually feel, because you can't figure out what it is. So you kind of think you're going a bit crazy at times. But I think once people are kind of educated in it, you know, because I remember when I had a panic attack for the first time, I had no idea what it was, and I had this, like, it sounds a bit extreme, but I mean, at the time there was like an overwhelming feeling of like just you're about to die for no reason. And that sounds extreme, but that's what, like, I don't know if you've had one, but that's what they are. They come on so quick, and people can't really tell that you're going through anything really. People, you look the exact same, you know. There's no blood anywhere, you know, everything's as it should be, but there's kind of an empty kind of panicky stare in your in your eyes or whatever. So I think the biggest anxieties that people have in trying to articulate how they feel is that they're just, I don't know, almost too deep in it to actually turn to someone and say, listen, I'd love to tell you what's wrong with me, but I can't figure out what it is initially. But like, as an overall, it's, you know, it's just mental health. That's kind of the umbrella that all that stuff kind of falls into. So I suppose it's great that the conversation is now becoming more and more public, and people who have had these problems for years are now coming out and saying, oh, thank God I can finally say it. And it's not a big deal. Do you know what I mean? It's really not a big deal when someone goes, of course for you going through it, it's a big deal, it's huge. But I mean, for the rest of the world, when you find out someone isn't totally right in their head and they haven't been for a while, it's good to just get a conversation going. So
I think a lot
also,
of the
I've got tea, so I'm gonna go over there and finish making the tea, but I'm still here.
Okay, that's fine.
So I'll just be over here.
That's cool. I've got tea as well. Go on, what were you going to say?
I think a lot of like what celebrity culture for so long just wasn't ever putting forward that these were the problems. We only ever saw it when it came to the absolute maximum. Someone just did a snake maneuver to get by the camera. But yeah, like they always put either the very best life forward, or when it got to the absolute worst, when it goes to addiction or when it goes to suicide at the worst side. You know, we never had people in the public eye being all right to talk about it and be vulnerable enough to share their journey. Like, I think that's so important.
Like, I'd look, like, you don't see this on social media. Social media is kind of like a mask for everything. But you know, whenever you're going on your holidays, or you get a new car, or you've got a new girlfriend, whatever, you always post pictures of it and you write a story about it. But no one really does this, just because everyone's probably afraid to do it. Like, just says, hey, I feel awful today, I'm having a dreadful day. Twitter's just not really, or like any of that kind of, like, people are almost like afraid to do it.
The only social media platform I've seen where that's acceptable is which I think is brilliant, which is YouTubers, like the vloggers who've got these huge millions of followers, and I think that's amazing. Like, they're not being filtered by anyone. They just get up every day and say how they are. And like, I've personally taken quite a lot of courage from that, like seeing people who I see as successful openly getting on camera and just saying, I feel awful, I feel worthless, I don't know what I'm doing. And like, I think like part of it is just understanding that those feelings happen to everyone, and therefore there's nothing wrong with you if you're mentally ill, if your mental health needs attention. It's not because you're bad or you're, I kind of want to say it's like you're not special, which isn't right, because, you know, we're all special, and that's kind of part of recovery, is accepting yourself as special. But like, I struggle with this a lot. I feel like I'm the only one. I feel like, you know, this has only ever happened to me, and therefore it must be really awful. And
did yours come on from having success, like you said, and just working and then stopping? Is that where, or was it always kind of underlying?
Yeah, like for me, I didn't realise that I was using work as a constant treadmill to avoid the pain. Do you know what I mean? And it wasn't until I stopped that because I was like, I want to write some honest songs. I wanted to like have some kind of depth and truth to what I was making. And then there was all this stuff just coming out, and I was just, I just felt really afraid of it, and yeah, I kind of got to a really bad point where I didn't want to live anymore, and I went to go and get help, like professional help, and that's when I realised there's just so many layers to like being a human and trying to just get through every day one by one, like whether or not you're a creative, or you know, if you're like out saving lives, or if you're just living your life. It's like it's a lot to take on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, no, completely. Like a lot of it, like there's a podcaster here who's a fantastic musician as well, Blind Boy. He plays in a group called the Rubber Bandits, and within the podcast, like he obviously appeals to young males, and that's kind of his audience. But one of the things that he tries to push through so much is just emotional intelligence, which is just learning the words to actually describe what it is you're feeling. You know, which is what so many people struggle with. It's like they know there's something wrong, but they don't know how to get that out there. You know, until it gets really, really bad, then they feel they have to say something.
I think people are probably scared of the wording of it even. Like my cousin is now, she's going to study to be a nurse. And 5 years ago, she would have said she was going to become a psychiatric nurse. But now it's a mental health nurse. And
Right.
it's almost like it's a more approachable term or something like that. You know, as soon as you put psychiatric on thinking, you just start thinking of, you know, long white coats and, you know, straitjackets.
There's
and
a
stuff.
real taboo around it, isn't there? Like psychiatry and psychopaths and like, you know what I mean? It's just got this terrible imagery of people who are like somehow dangerous or they're going to hurt you, and it's like that can't be helpful, can it?
Yeah, no, it's not good for anyone. Yeah.
No. So now she's going to be a mental health nurse, right?
A mental health nurse. Yeah, and it's the exact same thing. It's in Trinity College, which is like the main college in Dublin. So they've just changed the wording of it, which I think is great. It's just put more of a filter on it, because the conversation's been happening more and more and more. You know, definitely sounds.
Guys, if you've just tuned in, you are watching We Are Listening, which is a real talk. It's a live stream real talk. So we're recording this today, and it's going to go out to you a few days afterwards. It's the first time we've done that, because the first 2 episodes we did them live in real time, which caused, like, ironically, more mental health problems to me than it solved. And like, because I was trying to do it weekly, and after like trying to do 3 on the trot, I was just like, I've got to stop, and I kind of have another little mini breakdown. So this is a new version. We're recording this in advance, and it's going to go out live. Well, you're watching it going out live as a Facebook premiere, and we are actually here right now. At the moment you're watching it, we're here, and we're going to be replying to all your comments in the chat. So please ask away with any questions you have, and we will reply to them. And in case you've just joined us, this conversation is all about creativity, mental health, well-being, and kind of surviving life. And I'm joined by Kodaline. These guys know how to survive life. You're on your 3rd album now, right?
The 3rd one there, yeah.
The first 2 albums were absolutely phenomenal successes. These guys are playing huge festivals around the world on a regular basis, and their fan base is just very, very supportive and loving, and an international kind of family. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, completely. I think through our music, we've made such a connection with some of our fans, like all over the world, that there's a lot of times where we'll get messages from them, and it's them telling us about their lowest moment, or how the songs have kind of helped them through. And I think even when we were in that kind of lull period, when we're kind of going through our own anxieties and our own, you know, feelings, it's so rewarding and lovely to know that there's other people out there who are going through exactly the same thing. So for us to be able to do this now and just kind of put it back, put the shoe on the other foot, I think it's very appropriate.
Well, hats off to you guys. It's a brave thing to do, and I'm really grateful, and I know that people watching are really grateful, and especially like to be able to open up, like Mark, how you've just talked about your panic attacks. Like that takes a lot of courage to say that to anyone, let alone to kind of talk about that in public. So I just want to commend you for that. And I wanted to ask you guys about music and about creativity, and you know, because that's been such a huge part of my journey with this, and I wondered if like there were anything you'd like to say about how music may have helped you or even hindered you.
Music is like a double-edged sword, I think, if you're artistic and you kind of, if your mood goes up and down in waves. So, I know with me, if I go through a period where I'm writing music that's really, really, really good, or I think it's really good, I always get a much better night's sleep. I'm always in a much better mood. But then if I go through...
So if you write something good, then you sleep better?
Way better.
Yeah.
And it's silly, but like, and there's nothing I can do about it, because it's like you're just trying to impress yourself, and you can often let yourself down before you've even finished a song, and you can be very, very hard on yourself. But when it goes well, it's incredible. But this kind of puts it into perspective of how insignificant it is in the outside world. I remember I was having a really bad day at home. I had like a bad block, and I couldn't come up with a part for this song.
Yeah.
And I was going to my parents' house that night for dinner, and I got to their house, and I was just in such a huff. This is only recently, probably like a year or two ago. Yeah. I was like, oh, I can't get this chorus. You know, it's so stupid because whatever. And then my sister was sitting across the table, and she's a policewoman. And then I won't go into detail on the story what she told me, but basically what she had been through that day was about 1 billion times worse than what I had been through. And she was just sitting there. She was fine. She was just having her dinner, like, and it was like what she went through would be enough to scar me for life. Like, you know, you can imagine what the police deal with everything. And and I was sitting there moaning about like not being able to write the right chord progression or something silly like that. And then it just kind of put into perspective, just like, wow, she's just a lot better at dealing with everyday life or certain aspects of it anyway. Because I suppose everyone has their own problems. Like, you know, my sister went through anxiety as well, but she totally got over that. But she's certain things in her life as a policewoman just have no effect on her, and she can go home at night and she can, you know, get into her comfy clothes and watch TV and just switch off. So I think she's trained her brain to kind of deal with a problem when she can, because there is some times when you're lying in bed or whatever and you're stressing over something that you literally have no control over, and there's nothing you can do. And that's probably my biggest thing, is it's called catastrophizing, I think.
Yeah, right.
When you, like, let's say it's like, right, my flight's at 9 o'clock, we're going to leave at 7, but it's probably going to be traffic, so I'll probably be late, and I'll be there at 9:30, then I have to book another flight, and then I'll miss this. And that's what I do more than anyone else I know. But and that's a whole other side to kind of mental health, which I only found out recently.
Very recently.
Catastrophizing is when you just imagine problems, and then you start to worry about the problems that you've just imagined that don't even exist. So sorry, I kind of went off on a tangent there.
No, but
that's cool.
But on the same thing, I'm kind of the opposite then, in that I keep everything bubbling away at a certain level and don't show very much emotion over anything usually until it gets to that stage where you've gone too far, and then it's a problem that you actually have to deal with. So it's just, everybody has such intimate ways of how they deal with what's going on in their head that, you know, there is no right answer for how you get through this. But for us, music has been a huge help, you know, just being able to do something that you love every day, whether it's drawing a painting or, you know, whatever it is that you can do at the end of a day that just releases something.
Like, do you know what I did yesterday? Because I always read up articles on different ways to improve your mental health and stuff. And I started meditating last year, which you know, some people are just like, they imagine you sitting in a room, and you are sitting in a room, I suppose. But I found that to be the number one, like the best thing to kind of help any kind of anxiety or bad days. If you can train yourself, it takes a while to learn. But and also cleaning. I was having such a dreadful day yesterday, and I was just like, do you know what? I'm just gonna clean the whole house. So I hoovered the whole house and I mopped. I cleaned the kitchen. This took me like an hour and a half. But at the end of it, I literally just felt like incredible.
There's a weight off.
Like,
you know what? Like, I see that, you know, you're laughing and thinking like maybe that sounds stupid, but I completely get that. Like, like literally about 3 weeks ago when I kind of started spinning again, and I had to cancel all these live streams that I had planned. Like, I had to cancel one I had planned with you guys, which luckily you're available to reschedule, but other ones I had Imogen Heat planned, and I'm not going to get to speak to her till next year now, blah blah blah. I was all this stuff in my head, like really spinning, like I'm a failure, I'm a terrible person, blah blah blah. Do you know what I did? I started redecorating my house. Right? I started painting the walls, which we moved into this house in September, and I've been looking at like the horrible walls and the horrible stairs every day, and every day I've been like, oh, I need to do that. And you know what? Like, it's actually really therapeutic to just do something adult, right? Because when you're freaking out like that, you're not being adult, and it's okay. We can't be adult all the time. It's okay to embrace your inner child and let that out.
Yeah.
But it's also really great to just pick up a roller or pick up a Hoover and just do something to care for yourself and your environment and think, I am in control of this.
Like it does. That doesn't sound crazy to me. Obviously, there is people that have a much deeper level of depression that, you know, getting the Hoover out will not make
not an option.
It's not an option. But I think anything that you live with, like whether it's your car or your bedroom or your house, everything is kind of an extension of you, down to the clothes you wear. You know, so like if your bedroom is in a pile of shite and you wake up in the morning, the first thing you see is mess, straight away you're gonna it's gonna affect you in some
just
day.
puts you on a bad day.
Yeah, so like I've found in the last kind of few months that cleaning up your life, like the visual aspects of your life, it does something. It brings in a certain element of calm or something. I don't know.
Yeah, like when we came off the road and we'd been on this kind of every day was completely scheduled and there was plans for everything. You didn't really have to think about what you were doing. Once we hit that wall and we came home and suddenly everything was like we hadn't been adults for a long time. You know, we hadn't had to do anything. We'd been big kids for nearly 3.5 years past when we should have been. So for me anyway, I had to I just had to go to the studio every day. That was my thing. I had to do something in a routine. I had to just go every morning, even if there was nothing to do. It's just knowing that you go out there and maybe all you do is tidy up a few cables. Maybe all you do is listen to a new song or something. But just going and doing something routine and normal, well, making you feel like normal, it really helps to kind of just keep the head busy, you know. And I think that's a huge part of it.
Totally.
So it's really interesting that there was a bit of like a culture shock when you kind of came home, because like I certainly experienced that when I was touring a lot. Like you're almost needed to be kept a child. Like you're almost like, it's almost like people don't want you to take any responsibility because they just want you to stay ready to rock. Do you know what I mean? It's like, here's some more drugs, here's some more alcohol, here's whatever you need to just keep you ready to party. And it's like, great, but like, I'm human.
Yeah. There's a certain part of me that can't do that forever.
Especially when you come home and you expect like your fridge to just be full of beer and and ready-made sandwiches. And you're like, this isn't a dressing room. But so does it still get to you then quite often, this the kind of, I don't know what you call it, whatever you want to call it?
I mean, I called it depression, even though, like you say, I'm not like in a state where I can't pick up a Hoover. And yeah, it does. Like I've been struggling this week. You know, I'm in a different place to you guys in terms of releasing records. You guys are about to drop your third album. I've literally just released the first single from my first album. Even though I've been touring for a long time as a beatboxer and a performer, I never made a record of my own because I just kept saying, oh no, beatboxing is a live thing. You have to kind of witness it to understand it. So like, yeah, for me, like that's been a really, really triggering process. Like taking away my stability, right? Which was like, people love beatboxing, people love live looping, people love this persona that I've created. And for me to kind of say, well, I'm, you know, that persona that I've created is part of me, but it's not all of me. And there's this other side to me, which is possibly a little harder to digest, but is much more real. Like that is so scary. I'm not gonna lie. I am so terrified of what's gonna happen next with what I'm doing. Like, and part of me is desperate for it to succeed so that I can convince myself I'm good enough, and the other part of me is desperate to fail so that I don't have to deal with whatever might come if the world does see me for who I really am. Is that something that resonates?
Yeah, there's always two voices. And it doesn't matter if the other people in the room are telling you that's really good. You're just like, yeah, but there's something. And sometimes you have to listen to both voices because either one could be right, you know. But oh my God, yeah, if like, I think 90% of my mood fluctuating is down to what I create, because it's all I do. Like when I'm at home, like if I'm not hoovering, I'll be kind of writing music. So like that's where I come, because like I'm lucky in that I've got like a stable family, and like there's no part of my life that on paper is wrong or bad, but like, you know, there's people out there with much worse problems than any of us. But yeah, I think when your imagination kind of controls what you do for a living, if that's not at its best, it can just really affect your mood. And it's probably the same for people who like any kind of creative, you know. I've got a friend who he writes. It used to be Minecraft on YouTube. Now it's changed to what's called Fortnite. He writes these scripts online every day, and they act out these online videos with characters every day in Fortnite. So every day he has to write like a 10-minute script, and because he has to create every single day, it started to mess with his head. You know, in the beginning he loved it because he was like, oh, amazing, I'm creating for a job. But after a while, that part of his head that was just constantly creating, that started to just kind of cause problems, you know, until he kind of decided to take a break. So it's kind of across the board, any kind of creative. Yeah,
like even when we were on tour and you're doing music every day, and it's the thing you've wanted to do all your life, we still got to a point where it's like, it's not a chore necessarily, but some of the love and the endorphins that you get back from doing it, some of them dissipate a little bit. And I know, like we got to a stage, I think, where we were just going from venue to venue, and the days started to kind of mold into one another, and we just had to like consciously go and say, let's just go and explore. Let's just do something different. Let's just, you know. And now when we do it, we're a lot healthier about it. We go maybe just see the city for a day, you know, rather than just going to sit in the venue, which we were very happy to do for some reason for a long time. Now we try and get out there and, you know, just experience a bit of culture with it, and that suddenly makes the day just a little bit more fun and a bit more enjoyable. Oh,
amazing. Guys, if you have just joined us, you are watching episode 3 of We Are Listening, and we want to hear from you guys. If you have got any questions or comments or thoughts or stories of your own you want to share, please share them with us below using the hashtag We Are Listening. And we've had some questions from you guys, which we are really excited to answer. We're going to get to one of them in a sec. I just had one question I wanted to ask you, just based on what you were just saying there, Jay, about endorphins, right? So this is something that I've kind of been thinking about. I remember when I first started doing shows, right? The first few shows I did, I would get so high without any drugs, without any stimulants whatsoever, just the sheer adrenaline, excitement, energy, serotonin of just performing with a crowd, and like it just felt incredible. And then I remember, I can see it now, I couldn't really understand it at the time, but I'd kind of have those nights where it was incredible and everything was amazing and everything was full of love, and then I'd have like that first night where for some reason that wasn't happening and I didn't know why, and I would start to panic and I'd think, shit, why don't I feel amazing? What am I losing my powers? Is this all going to fail? Is my fantasy going to crumble? And for me that was very, very dangerous, because like I've now been completely clean and sober for 10 years, but I started getting into dangerous territory where you're starting to replace that natural buzz with whatever else you can get your hands on, and that's not that for me was a really big trigger for my mental health. Is that something that's happened to you guys?
Well, we weren't, you know, we never went full rock and roll with anything, but we did drink a lot, you know, just because that was the easiest way to not replace it, but I think for us it was trying to come down quicker than you had the time to, because we're like leaving the venue within half an hour of the gig being over, and for me there's still stuff going on in your head 2-3 hours after the show. So to just kind of come straight back down, jump in the van, drive to another town, it's like it does just throw you a little bit. It's very hard to kind of balance that out, and yeah, like we did struggle quite a bit, I think, early on, before we kind of grew up a little bit and kind of knew that what we were doing wasn't the best thing for us. I think the first while you're really just trying to balance yourself out and make it all feel right.
Yeah, I remember like our first 2 years on the road, definitely. I know me and the drummer Vinny, we looked at each other after 2 years and we were like, no exaggeration here, but we've had a drink every single day for the last 2 years. Every single day, whether it's loads of drinks or it's just a couple of drinks. Like it got into the stage that like walking on stage, I could not do it without having a drink. And I'm kind of back there now, to be honest, because we're not really playing that often. So it's kind of like we'll play like 2 weekends a weekend or 2 festivals a weekend. So I'll have a drink then. But when we're on a run or we're doing 6 weeks, you just can't. You can't drink every night. You just can't. You can't rely on like you said, other substances to try and find that high that you get from playing live. Because there is shows you get that you just there'd be a big crowd and they're just loving it, and you come off stage. And I'll look at you, and you'll be like, "That was the most amazing show," and I'll be like, "I hated that show." And there'd be no difference in the show. We'd both be standing. It's not like my side of the room would be off.
Yeah.
There is no definition as to why. It's probably down to just how you felt that day. It could have been down to the way someone looked at you earlier on that day or something silly. I don't know. That's the thing. You just can't pinpoint or define reasons for how you feel ever, really.
No.
And
and you can't get to that stage where you're relying on it. That like when we were doing it for such a long time, and it was kind of consistent that you're going to feel great after every show. As you're saying, when you get to that first moment where you don't get that payoff, it's like you can't let yourself go to the place where you need to replace it. It's like maybe that's just something that is going to be part of the journey from here on in. Maybe not every day is going to be the best day ever.
If only it could. So, how good would that be?
That sounds like such an adult way to approach it, which is kind of what I wasn't doing. But like,
well, we didn't do it in an adult way whatsoever. we can just look back and say, we can talk like adults now, but we don't act like it.
So what would be the alternative then? Like, so I guess you're saying embrace those negative feelings rather than trying to push them away.
If you can almost look from the outside in at yourself and be like, right, why don't you feel as good today? And there's probably a reason. You know what I mean?
It's not because you're a terrible human being.
No.
Well.
Well, guys, I've got some questions here that I think would be lovely to answer. If you've just tuned in, you're watching We Are Listening, which is this live stream series talking about mental health. And we've got some lovely questions from across the internet. And let's start with this one, which is from Instagram, from Herding Cats blog, who says, tips for overcoming imposter syndrome would be helpful because artists, writers, musicians are dealing with constant rejections. It's easy to fall into the, oh my God, maybe I do suck rabbit hole. What do you think about that?
I think that's a tax that comes with being someone creative. I think you're going to have that forever. I think it's
imposter syndrome is part of the deal.
You're always going to doubt yourself. You know what I mean? And other people are always going to doubt you as well. But that's the reason you do it. You spend years of your life doing this for that magic moment that all of a sudden everyone goes, that's great. So it's just how you deal with it. Like, you just have to kind of be like, whatever. If someone's kind of, if you don't impress, like, try and impress yourself first.
Yeah. Like, I only heard about imposter syndrome very recently.
I've never heard of it.
I think it's just become a term that people are kind of realizing is what is going on. But I think that is the artistic struggle. It's believing in everything that you do while you're doing it. But then after that, like we used to say, when you're putting an album out, it's like sending your child off to school. There's only so much you can prepare this thing, and then it's out in the world, and then it's everybody else's.
Imposter,
yeah.
Yeah, so like my interpretation of imposter syndrome is kind of almost what we were just saying. Like with touring, you come off stage and for me, it's like you either feel like, oh my God, I'm a genius, or you feel like, oh my God, I'm an idiot and I've tricked everybody, and how can they possibly be cheering for such a terrible excuse for a human? And that for me, that's imposter syndrome, where you feel like you're a bit of a fraud, or you've stolen the chords for that song off of someone else, or whatever it is. Like, there's so many reasons why you discredit what other people are saying is good.
It's so funny because our first ever tour we ever did, I'd say it was 5.5 years ago. What was the band called? We Were Augustines?
We Are Augustines, yeah.
And we did a short little stint around the UK playing, like, we were opening for them, playing little kind of clubs. And I just asked them, I was like, have you any advice for us, because it's our first tour. And I thought he was going to say something amazing, like, yeah, go get him and stuff, but he didn't. He said, like, you're going to have extreme highs and extreme lows, and there's nothing you can really do about it. You just have to, like, embrace it all, and just...
Wow, what advice.
And know if you're going through a lull, if you're going through a stage where you haven't written something good in a while, or you haven't done a good show, think back to the time when, like, it will come around again. You don't just lose your talent. It doesn't happen. It's just, for me anyway, it comes in waves. I'll go through a stage where I'm doing good stuff and a stage where I'm not. And You can't always be on fire. Even the best songwriters in the world who are out there writing songs for everybody, they still write a stinker every now and then. You know, it's possible.
Yeah. And they probably still feel bad about themselves.
I'd say they feel worse because their egos brought into
yeah.
it, and they have such great success.
Yeah, the bigger the success, the bigger the fall from that.
Yeah. I saw this really inspiring hashtag on Twitter the other day. It's called share your rejections, and it had all these really, really successful people sharing what shit they've been through and like horrible stuff that they've been told about themselves and all that. And I found that quite inspiring. Like, are there any like Kodaline rejection stories that you want to share that would kind of encourage the rest of us?
We had like pretty much the guts of our first album. There's like 11 songs on there. We had about 8 of those songs written, and we had no record deal. We sent the songs to all the record companies, and we even sent them to. I posed as our manager, and I sent them to all the colleges in Dublin trying to get gigs. And I literally sent our first album, which has brought us huge success, to everyone, and I did not hear a single thing back from anyone. And then it wasn't until 2 years later that we kind of got a deal and stuff, and it's the same songs, you know, and it's the same songs we play now. It's probably our most popular songs still, but I don't know what it is. Like, you just I don't know. You just can't predict it.
Yeah.
Your songs might be amazing, and the select few people that are around you might not see that. You know.
So then, what's the take home from that? Don't give up.
Don't give up. No, definitely not. It sounds so cheesy, like believe in yourself and don't give up. But that is the root. that is the root of it. You know, like you really have to believe you're good.
Yeah, but if you don't believe in yourself, why would anyone else? You know, and that I think that just comes back to any question that anyone asks us, like how should I go forward? How can I get a record deal? How can I get gigs? It's like, just put yourself out there and really believe in it, and once you're backing it up yourself, someone else is going to see the greatness in it if you do.
Because we did a load of gigs before any kind of success or any kind of deal, and we played gigs to like 4 people, and you know the 4 people, and you're watching them. One person's on their phone, but like you learn more from those moments and from those early gigs and the early things you do and your first few demos and stuff. You learn so much by your failures back, like when you're starting out. You really do. There's no one that just, well, I'm sure there's a select few that just wrote a song and released it and it just became instantly like, but everyone goes through rejection. I watched a documentary on Scooter Braun, who's Justin Bieber's manager, and he had Bieber for 2 years and no one wanted him, and he's had a career that's lasted nearly 10 years and he's the biggest artist in the world. So like everyone has been through it.
Wow, he must have been super young if there was 2 years before he even came out.
He was 13, or he was 12 or 13 when he first found him, and he was showing the YouTube videos that like he had discovered Justin Bieber from, and they were amazing. They were amazing, but
awesome. Well, let's take another question. This one's also from Instagram. This is from Cole Sands. I don't know if I'm saying that right. What are your views on medical CBD oil to help with depression? This is the cannabis oil.
Okay, well, I've had my first experience with this last week because a friend of mine, his mom had chronic back pain for 20 years. And there was no getting rid of it, and she started taking CBD oil, and her back pain just miraculously went. It was gone. And he started taking the CBD oil, and I think he takes it like 3 times a day, 3 little drops. And I think the stigma around that is people still think of weed and marijuana, whereas it's not the case. It's not, you don't get a high from it. But this is the same friend who's a YouTuber who stresses out about writing scripts, and he said his sleep pattern got so much better.
Really?
And I took it for 2 days, and the same thing. My mood, like as soon as you wake up in the morning, like straight away, you were just like zap. I'm going into Dublin next week to pick up some of it and try do it for like a sustained amount of time, because anything I've heard, it just seems all positive, and I think it helps hugely with stress and anxiety and lowers kind of. I'm sure it won't make it go away. It's not a magic potion.
Yeah, there is no magic cure, but anything that can help in any kind of way like that is worth looking into. And obviously, it's not going to work for everybody, so it's just worth trying out and see if maybe that is something for you.
I mean, it's natural; it comes from the ground. So.
Cool. Here's another question. This one's from Facebook. This is from Martin Barmforth. It says, do you have family or people you know who do not understand your mental health issues? No need to say who. I think that's a really interesting question, like in terms of like tolerance and acceptance.
Yeah, it's just very hard when the people around you don't quite get what you're going through. But I know for myself, I've been very lucky. My granddad is a psychotherapist now. We're retrained as a psychotherapist.
Yeah.
I think it was only after he did that we kind of figured out other problems in our family. Not maybe myself. Like I know when I was in college, he kind of saw straight away that I had a problem and that I should probably not be there for any longer, and took me out. So I was really lucky to have someone who got it. But there was stuff that it was only after he had that knowledge that we realized there was stuff wrong with other people, that was why they acted that way, or so when there's kind of animosity towards people because of how they've acted, and it's only after the fact that you realize why they acted that way, it is a really, really big problem, and if the people closest to you don't understand, then the problems inside are just going to feel even worse and worse.
Totally. I had an experience. My sister had a really bad panic attack in front of, we were having dinner, and it was so bad that she was in a ball on the ground, crying, I knew what it was, but my dad just started to freak out then. My dad was like, what's wrong with her? And I had to kind of explain to my dad, I was like, this is what a really bad panic attack looks like. And he'd never heard that expression, because it was a different time, mental health wasn't really, I don't know if it was as much, it definitely wasn't as much of a thing as it is now. People definitely had it. It was definitely as present in people. But he really didn't know what to do. Whereas now, he knows what a panic attack is, and you just have to, it's scary. He was nearly more scared than she was. And at one point, she was mid panic attack. She was laughing at how scared he was by her. It was a really mental dinner, if I'm honest. But I mean, I think it's just about sitting someone down and trying to explain to them exactly like that. There is something wrong with me, but maybe you can't see it, but it's probably because I'm afraid to open up and tell you.
Awesome. I've got a couple more questions. Got this one from Twitter, which is from Michael Winslow, who's someone who I've worked with before. Do you remember the Police Academy movies?
One of the best voices ever.
Yeah. So this guy's an absolute legend, and I'm honoured that he would send in a question for this. Michael Winslow says, have you had the opportunity to do anything with children with autism? My experience is that I had to be very careful, in some cases selective, about what sound and what music and tones to do and how softly. What are your ideas about reaching out to them, and how? I personally haven't done work directly with people with autism in that, just with people with autism, but I've done lots of work with young people where there have been kids with autism in the mix, and I've done some work in what do you call it? Not before, it's for young people who have offended, where you don't necessarily know if they're mental health issues, but you have to be really, really careful and kind and generous and patient, because you're going to get challenged on everything. And yeah, I'm guessing being careful about how loud you are and how crazy you are and how intense you are is absolutely key. I don't know if you guys have experience with stuff like that.
Do you know, I don't think we have any.
No, I don't think we have. We work, one of my very good friends from college, her son is autistic, and she's a singing teacher, so I know she's found a lot of solace and just kind of a lot of relief through music. And obviously it's only certain types of music that she can use, but I know that he's opened up completely when a certain song comes on, and maybe he'll go completely inside himself when another song comes on. But it's finding those bits that work. And I think our only real experience with autistic children ourselves, we were on a TV show in Ireland. It's like the Late Late Show. It's a talk show, and they had these work dogs for autistic children, and they were it's like a poodle crossed with another really smart dog, and these dogs are so placid that they can just stand there and take the pulling, take the the bits of aggression that goes out, and be there and they know when they're needed. So they're able to, follow the child around, and there are incredible things being done, and it's only kind of, again, it's like mental health. We're only scratching the surface at what this problem is.
That's amazing. So guys, if you are watching this right now, we are online with you as long as you're watching this when it goes out live. This is a Facebook premiere, so if you leave your comments below, we're watching, so we'd love to reply to you if you've got any questions or thoughts. Like, the whole goal of this conversation is to do that, is to create a conversation, to create a forum, to create a platform for storytelling and kind of practicing accepting each other. So I'm feeling like quite emotional, really, that these lovely guys from Kodaline would take the time in their ridiculously busy schedule of rehearsing and touring, recording, to kind of talk to me about my mental health and share that with you guys. So I think it'd be awesome if we could kind of join me in some gratitude for these guys. So please leave your hearts and your comments. And any other questions you have, we're here right now. Guys, do you have any other thoughts that are on your mind when we've been talking about all of this?
Oh, I know I didn't really talk about much, but when I was in college, I went through this thing where I knew I wanted to do music. That was my thing I was always going to do. And when I actually got to college, I went and did this classical music degree. And I remember just being so deflated when I got there, that this thing that I was so sure of, that was like, this was going to make my life the best thing in the world, just wasn't quite what I wanted it to be. And I know a lot of young people, they get to college and it's this thing that they spent 6 years of their life studying towards their A levels or doing their leaving cert, and you get there and it's a huge letdown sometimes. Yeah. And as I was saying, luckily my granddad was able to spot that there was something wrong with me, but it took maybe 6 to 9 months of going through this struggle of, why isn't this thing as awesome as it should be? And this is the thing that I've wanted to do all my life. Why is this not making me feel happy? And it's kind of similar to what we're saying, in that when we're on the road and suddenly it stops and you're not getting that validation. I know the young people are so much more susceptible to it, because it's this thing that they've built up in their heads, and this is the solution as far as they're concerned. So I know how big a struggle it was for me to realize that this is not the end of my life. This is not the end of the road. There's something else. There's another way to go about this. And just kind of getting through that is so important,
It's the same that happened to Will, another friend of ours who he now works with one of the biggest songwriters in the world, and he's worked on our album. He is one of the best guitar players I've ever seen. He went to Berkeley, and he was like, he wanted to go there his whole life. He's an amazing kind of jazz musician. And he was there 4 months, and he had to leave because he started to hate music. They made him play a chord you had to play it like it was incorrect if you didn't do it like this way. I think that's what happens to a lot of people that go and, like you said, study music. You think music, college, amazing, but it's never. A lot of people kind of feel, I don't know, disconnected from music when they go to that course. That's probably a really common thing in musicians who go to study music. Yeah, and expecting more from it.
When kids are, just in that stage of transitioning into adulthood, it's so important for things to work, because when something doesn't work at that age in your life, you don't really have the necessary tools to deal with that letdown. So I think it's just really, it's important for people like us who have gone through that to talk about it, and say that this is what everyone goes through, and there's definitely a light at the end of the tunnel.
Even if you're in school and you're like 16 and you're studying and you can't figure out what you want to be when you're older, like very few people know exactly what they want to be when they're older. And then a lot of my friends who I've kind of found, who went to college for like 4 years, got out of college at like age 22, and then they were 4 years into the job that they always wanted. All of a sudden they just decide they want to do something else, and they do something else. Like because you don't know exactly what you want to do at any point, whether it's music or whether it's anything, you really should try not to worry about it. Because there's always options on the table for anything.
That's great, man. And I think, like, for someone like me who's like, even though I kind of established a really what would be described as successful career, like, I'm transitioning to something that makes me feel totally insecure, like I don't have that kind of base underneath me. And I feel like I've actually got some solace from reading other people's stories about starting things late in life. Like I'm 34, I'm not about to die, but like there is no kind of schedule for life. There is no like deadline that you have to achieve success by a certain age or whatever it is.
Definitely not.
No,
Yeah.
I think when you,
Alright.
like, so one of the best examples is C6 Steve, who's one of the loveliest
Yeah,
people
right.
we've had the pleasure
He's
of meeting
great.
out there, and he's just so positive. But again, didn't happen for him until so late in life. But now he's just embracing it. So I don't think there's no path that you should be on. You know, everyone has their own path, and that's absolutely fine.
I think that word "should" is what comes up a lot. Like you mentioned it earlier about when you when you got to college, you're like, I should be feeling a certain way. This isn't what it should be like. Do you think that's that word is a tricky one?
Yeah, because I think especially for young people, it's because you don't know any different. This is what you've built up in your head to be the be all and end all, to be the answer, you know. And when it's not, I think you're left with a huge emptiness that you don't know how to fill, because the should is there and it should be a certain way. But like now that we're we're a bit older and we get opportunities that pop up and it's like, oh, this is going to be great. If it doesn't happen, it's like, oh well, there'll be more. We know that because we've gone through enough. But I think at the start it is very hard to kind of to be let down, you know, or to not be as fulfilled as you should be, or you think you should be.
Yeah.
Like I was having a conversation with I think it was my auntie the other day, talking about, you know, all the subjects you do in school, the way there's one, like, you know, biology, geography, whatever. Why isn't there like a life class that teaches you how to deal with like any problem, like whether it's in your head?
You know what? Like I really feel passionately that really should be a thing. Like and I've got a 7-year-old, and he went to a new school. He just finished a year there, and this school was so different. Like they were teaching the kids meditation, they were teaching the kids yoga every day, and they were like, this stuff that, like, imagine if we just had that hardwired from the beginning. Like I feel like I've had to learn these skills myself in my 30s. Like I feel a little bit of grief for what I could have had if I hadn't been living my whole life in a cloud. Like, and I know that's like real generalization, but like, imagine if we did give that to our children from the outset.
You know, and like
That sounds incredible.
Hopefully it is just generational, because you know that our parents, they had the same problems, but they never dealt with them, or they never verbalized them. Maybe we're like, we can hope that we're just that in between generation, and that our children will have that opportunity to learn from a young age what mental health is, because
there's enough time in the school day.
Yeah, you should be able. It's as important as going out and playing racquetball for physical education. You should have mental education.
Just get rid of algebra and put mental health in there.
Exactly. When do you use maths anyway? Guys, thank you so much for this. It's just been incredible to talk to you. It's been like really helpful for me and very moving for me. So I can only imagine that you guys at home are feeling the same. This has been episode 3 of We Are Listening, which is now a monthly stream, no longer weekly, which is why I'm not crying. And we're going to do it again next month. So please make sure that you participate in this community. So if you haven't already liked Kodaline's Facebook page, please go and do that now. If you haven't already liked my Facebook page, SK Shlomo, please do that now as well. And if you have any other questions or thoughts or stories you want to share, use that amazing resource we now have, which is social media and the internet, and use it for something positive. Like, you don't just have to post Instagram pictures of you having this supposedly amazing life if you're not having one. Like, we want to hear about it. We want to know about it because it reassures us too. Like, I was going to ask you guys as a kind of closing, if there's anything we could kind of do together, some kind of take home that you guys think could work, that we could use to kind of change this trend.
You know, like, we did a lot of work with the charity CAM, you know, who are for male suicide prevention, and really the only kind of true goal they have is to talk about it, is to get the conversation started. Like, this is literally what we have to do about these things. We have to make it okay to talk about in the public eye and in everyday life. Like, guys I know have a really hard time just sharing emotional problems. You know, we're as I said, we're really lucky because there's 4 of us and we're 4 mates that can kind of talk about that stuff. But we need to be at a stage where you can go to the pub and chat to your mates and say, oh, I'm a bit down today, and for that to be okay. You know, so it's just furthering this conversation and just making it normal.
Yeah. What's one thing that someone watching this could do right now? Like, literally an action we could take right now to just try and bring the world together a tiny bit?
That's tough.
Well, I mean, you could, even for yourself, like, I find going for a walk, like, it's, I keep recommending the most simple things that obviously sound boring and mundane, but like when you come back from a walk and you've just breathed in fresh air and you've seen something nice, or you're listening to your favorite band or whatever, like, it's just getting out and being active and being present in the moment, I suppose, is kind of important, as opposed to sitting on your phone and all of a sudden 3 hours have passed and you've looked at everyone else's life who is so much better than yours when it's not, because most people feel this way. You know, if you just kind of put that down for a while and just go out into the real world and just go for a walk, like you might feel 3% better, but at least it's 3% better and not 3% worse.
That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. I've got something you could do. You could hit the share button on this this video right now, or you could send it directly to someone who you think would enjoy it, and just tell them that you're thinking about them, because not only does that like offer someone else a little bit of support, you get to just feel a bit better about yourself. You've just done something to help someone else, and you can savor that. You can like kind of breathe into that and enjoy that moment, and that kind of creates a positive feedback loop in your head. So yeah, I think there's loads of stuff we can do to help each other, support each other, and grow together. Guys, thank you so much to Kodaline. I really appreciate you guys, Mark and Jade, giving up your time. If anyone is inspired by this, please do send some love to those guys and talk to me as well about what you're going through. Is there anything that we need to be shouting about in terms of Kodaline? What is coming up for you guys? You've got your album out soon.
Yeah, no, well, you know, that's secondary. Let's get this out there first.
We'll be coming to a town near you at some point.
Make sure you check these guys out on tour, because they've got a lot to offer you. And yeah, I'm SK Shlomo. If you want to hear more about me, you can, skshlomo.com. And like I say, I've got a lot I'm trying to say, so I'd love it if you could join me on that journey too. Thank you so much for coming and listening. Big up to Kodaline, and don't forget the hashtag We Are Listening. Signing out, and we'll see you again soon for episode 4. Thank you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.